Woo!
Welcome to Night Talks, the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications talk show produced by students for you. I'm Isabella Matei, a third-year student studying media production, technology, and management. And our guest today is Cindi Avila, an alumni of UF's College of Journalism and Communications who worked for MSNBC, WCBS, New York One, WTBJ, WPTV, and WSBN. She also appeared on TLC, Food Network, and Bravo shows. Now she's the CEO of Green Goddess Public Relations. Hi, Cindi. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
I'm so excited to be here. This is so fun.
So you're an alum of the CJC, and now you even serve as part of the college's advisory council. So what does it feel like to be back on campus? Any fun memories you can share with us, and how foundational was your time here in Gainesville?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's always so exciting to be back. I kind of feel invigorated when I'm here. You know, yesterday I was asked if somebody wanted to drive me from one building to, a building 10, 15 minutes away. I was like, no, I want to walk. I just love this campus. I love, there's just something exciting about being here. I kind of get that same feeling when I'm walking around New York City. You just have gives you some energy, and it's so exciting to be here. And my time here, in the School of Communications was so great. I think my biggest memories were, and I always tell people, take advantage of everything here. I worked at the TV station. The TV station would definitely, I'd say, be my biggest memory. I tried out to anchor, the news, and I ended up getting a sports, backup sports anchor spot, and I took it. And I always tell people, take whatever you can get, do all these things. I wasn't that into sports, but it kind of got me, motivated to learn a little bit and research more, and it ended up being really fun, memorable experience. I had friends who ended up getting the weather and didn't have an interest in weather, but then, ended up really enjoying it and pursuing it even. So it was a great time here. I was part of a sorority, Phi E, and I love it. And now I have friends whose children are going into Phi E and coming back to University of Florida. So things are kind of coming full circle, and it's really nice to see.
And so with that, was there ever a time or that moment that made you pursue a degree in telecommunications, and with that, a career in broadcast journalism?
What's interesting is I always wanted to be a lawyer. From the time I was a small child, I was I want to be a lawyer. And then I had to take an elective at my high school that wasn't offered at another because I was going out of district. And the only elective that I really was that the other school didn't offer was TV production. So that's how I got into it. And I actually started anchoring the news at my high school, and it kind of gave me that bug. And I actually came to UF, I think it was the summer after my 11th grade year, to do the Summer Journalism Institute. And then when I came here, I knew pretty much what I wanted to do, so I didn't really veer off that track that much. The only thing I would say that I didn't think I wanted to be a producer, and my first job out of college was as a producer, and then I went on to be a producer at MSNBC and some other places in New York, and I really enjoyed it. I always say, keep your mind open, because I was definitely one of those people that thought, I want to be on air, that's what I want to do, and you take a different path, and that's kind of how the career I ended up in now, was something that I never expected.
Yeah, and that's great advice.
Yeah.
And so with that, in 1999, you began reporting and producing at WTBJ,
yes,
which is Miami's NBC station. So how did you get your foot in the door, and what was your particular beat while you were there?
I just decided I wanted to work in Miami, which was my hometown. And then I wanted to find an in, and I didn't have an in. And I saw somebody that was hiring for this particular job in Miami, and I looked up his name and found out he was a University of Florida graduate. And so in my cover letter to him, I said, I see you're a fellow University of Florida College of Journalism alum, and I'd love to talk to you about this job. And he called me and he said, I called you because you wrote that line about University of Florida. And it turns out he hired me. and he is on the journalism council with me. So now I always tell people, go on LinkedIn when you're looking for a job and see who, from the University of Florida works in that particular place. Because I really think it's such a good in to say, like as your opening line, hey, you're a fellow Gator, and because you have that instant connection, which is really great.
Did you chomp when you met?
We're always go Gators, yeah. I mean, the Gator love continues. And then what's really funny is he ended up connecting me to somebody who was casting for something at the Food Network at another time. So it's like, you just follow the steps, and it was another Gator graduate. I was a general assignment reporter and producer, so I did not have a beat. I did more producing there than reporting, and I was obviously like the low man on the totem pole there because I was still very, very young, out of college. And then I was there when 9/11 happened, so that ended up, I think I ended up doing a lot more producing because they needed producers at that time. I left kind of shortly after 9/11, but it was, when I think about my time there, it was kind of impactful because I was literally there the day 9/11 happened.
And that also leads us to our next question, because you go from Miami to New York, which is another large market. And so you were a producer at WCBS in New York, and that followed by MSNBC.
Yeah.
So walk us through those roles and what your responsibilities were at each.
It was funny. So I was in Miami around 9/11, and it was around that time, right before my husband and I had decided to move to New York without a job, which is crazy. I don't know. I look back and I'm like, how did we do that? Like, we just picked up and went there without a job. But it kind of worked out because the media industry was so big following 9/11. So I had a friend who worked at WCBS who I on the phone, I did an interview and got hired. Like, it was just the craziest thing. And I never forget, we drove up there and I started the next day at WCBS, working overnights. I worked a lot of overnights, which I did not love, but it's a good way to pay your dues. And yeah, I started there as an associate producer, moved up very quickly to be a producer. And then I really wanted to work for a national network. So that's kind of how I segued over to MSNBC. But when I got to New York, people were like, oh no, I started here at the very bottom and worked my way up. So there's, several different ways to get into these places. If you want to go somewhere and you want to, become an intern first, and maybe you are just getting coffee at the beginning and work your way up, that's one way to do it. Or, I knew coming out, like I said, I wanted to be an anchor. So I went wherever I got an anchor job, and I did it a little bit of a different way. But there's, all these different paths you can go. And the one thing that I did learn, which, everybody should know, obviously it's the harder you work, the quicker you're going to move up. And at my first job at WSVN, I actually found out they were counting the number of stories we would write. And I got promoted quickly there because I wrote fast. So, it's just a lesson to always, don't think you can just skate somewhere. Everybody's always watching. So always work your hardest. Always be the person that, in New York, if there's a snowstorm and it's your day off, you call, hey, do you want me to come into work? There's in Miami, you got a hurricane coming. Hey, I know it's the weekend. I'll cancel my plans. What do you need me to do? You always want to be that person that goes above and beyond in order to move up quickly.
So certainly taking initiative.
Yeah. So you just always, I say you always want to do that, but especially early on in your career when you're just starting somewhere, you just want to be, gung-ho, you want to be the first person people think of, and maybe you're there in the right place at the right time one day, and you do something that is 2 levels above your job that you are now just because you were there and you're available and you're really, enthusiastic.
Being in New York, obviously you have lots of events going on, lots of news. So were there any memorable moments while you were an anchor reporter at Spectrum News? What
I loved about it was something different every day. And in New York, there's just so much big stuff going on every day. I used to love, and it's funny because you kind of think that they're silly things, but the parades and that type of thing, I used to actually love covering those because it was really fun to get out in the community and do positive stuff. So I always emphasized I really loved kind of positive news. Whenever there was something you could make a difference, I did a story. I'm very passionate about animals and dogs, and I did a story at an animal shelter. And I remember, a big animal welfare agency shared it, and it's still, when you Google me, it's still one of the things that comes up. And I love doing those stories that made a difference. On the flip side, I will say I covered a child abuse case where a young girl was killed. And I was in the courtroom for 2 weeks, and it was a lot for me to take. And I was thinking about having kids at the time, so I think I was like emotional, and I just remember sitting in that courtroom thinking like, I'm feeling almost too close to like the story where like I want to cry in a courtroom, and I should be more unbiased. And that's kind of when I took I decided to take a career shift a little, because I was, I didn't love covering some of the depressing stories, or there was, stories where you had to knock on the door of somebody who had just lost a relative. And I will never forget one of them. I knocked on the door, very respectful. I'm so sorry. People want to know about your loved one. Do you have a picture? And they said no. And when I went to walk away, another reporter's like coming forward, and I said, oh, they don't really want to talk. And he was like, well, you weren't aggressive enough. You need to be more aggressive. And I was like, that's just not, I want to respect them, and I like let them mourn. And I'm, and he went there knocking, and it didn't go, and I saw the whole thing go down, and it didn't go well. And I was just like, that's not me. And that is great for some people, and some people are really, really good at it. And it just, I was more the feel-good story person, or the have-fun story, for sure.
Do you think that time was sort of the moment you realized you were sort of jaded by?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like, I'm not kidding. I remember leaving. That's why it's like I so remember that case. And I remember leaving and saying, like, is there a way for me to pivot a little bit while, taking all this experience I have and, kind of doing something that I really enjoy. And so that was kind of a life-changing moment, I'd say.
This is the pivot here. Yeah. You appeared on TLC's Dinner Takes All as a competitor. So how did you get that opportunity, and what was that like? Yeah.
So that was in 2007, something called Craigslist, which I don't know. Do you know what that is?
I do know what that is.
So Craigslist was kind of big, and I just, for some reason, like I was like, what else could I do? And I really loved cooking, and especially vegetarian food. And people told me they liked my vegetarian cooking, and I love to entertain. And so I was on Craigslist, and I saw this casting notice for Dinner Takes All, and it said, cooking show where you cook, and you compete against 4 other people, and I was like, I'm gonna apply, and somehow I got it. And I ended up winning. And when I won, I remember I was truly, it wasn't one of these fake things where like I found out I won and I was shocked. I was like very shocked, like, because I was competing against people who are very good cooks or even professional chefs. And I was like, how did I win? And so right from there, I just was like, on such a whim, I was like, I'm going to go to culinary school. And while I was working at New York One and still anchoring, I went to culinary school. And literally right when I was graduating culinary school is when the person that I told you that was a Gator from NBC in Miami saw on Facebook that I was graduating culinary school, and that, he saw the idea that I'm trying to combine my cooking career with my TV career. And he's like, hey, somebody I know from college is casting this show on the Food Network. Can I connect you? And I was like, absolutely. And he connected me to her. And that's how I got on the first season of Chopped.
Oh my God.
And it was amazing, because it was literally, I was just leaving culinary school, and I was like, this is what I wanted to do. And I got super lucky that it all worked out that way, that I ended up getting something very quickly. Things did not go well for me on Chopped. I was Chopped round 1, and I had never, because it was the first season, I had never seen an episode of Chopped. So I did not have the proper preparation that now I would have going in. And it's funny, one of the judges on there said that I was overly ambitious, which I was like, I'll take it, because I was trying really hard. And that was just the start of this new phase of my career.
I think overly ambitious is probably one of the best things they could have said, right? So with that, appearing on Chopped, and you even appeared on the Food Network's The Food Detectives. So kind of shifting from news and doing reality TV, what are some behind-the-scenes insights that viewers might not know about? What's sort of different from filming a reality TV show?
What's funny, too, a little fact, I appeared on an episode of The Real Housewives of New York, not as a real housewife.
And can you please expand on that?
So Bethany Frankel went to my culinary school, and she was doing a cookbook. And so she came to my culinary school to shoot an episode, and we were like her recipe testers with her for her cookbook. So it was a little part, and she was super duper nice. She was very nice. It was really fun. Probably the most reality experience I had, though, was I was on a show on Bravo, totally unrelated to cooking, called Pregnant in Heels. Pregnant in Heels is a show that followed around pregnant women. They had some sort of interesting thing going on with their pregnancy. I had this strange phobia that I thought I wasn't gonna have kids because I don't like needles. So mine was that I had a fear of needles. And that's the one that where I think I really got like the real reality experience. You know, they put you in certain scenarios. They had me doing hypnotherapy and all these, aromatherapy and all these different things. And it was fun. And they also get you at your they make sure to get you at your very emotional and vulnerable times. So there was like times where I was like, I don't think I could do this. And,
And were you at all aware of that?
Yeah, I was. So I think I knew, and I was like, I still wanted to be very authentic to myself and make sure that I was, not doing anything that wasn't authentic to me.
Yeah, that's great behind the scenes info. Yeah. And you kind of speak to that authenticity. And so in 2010, you launched Green Goddess Public Relations. So what is the mission for your firm and how do you help your clients?
Yeah. So around the same time that I was doing the Food Network stuff, I was hired by a brand to be a spokesperson. And it's so funny because these are like things that when I was in college, I never, would have thought I was doing. But I was hired by a vegetarian brand to do some spokesperson work, which is go and talk about that brand on TV and in different forms of media. And as I was doing that, because I worked in New York for all those years, and my husband also worked in New York, we had so many contacts in the media. So I started booking myself on TV shows and, in various places. And a friend of mine was like, you're doing the PR for that. And I was like, I didn't even really think about what PR was at the time. And so that's kind of how it took off from there. I was like, she's right. Like I have this like Rolodex of media contacts who, when you work at WCBS or New York One or MSNBC, now those people have gone to other places. So now we know people, at almost every TV station in New York, at all the national outlets. So I was like, it's kind of genius, you're right. And so I did, I pivoted and I still did some spokesperson work myself, but then I started to take on other clients. And I still thought it would be mostly food, but then I was doing like healthy food. So then a friend was like, well, since you already do healthy food, why don't you do health? And I'm like, it's true. And she had like a referral for me. So then I took on a health client. Then, as I got pregnant and was having my first child, obviously family became a big thing. So I took on like a baby photographer and a pediatrician, and it just kind of evolved from there to where I started taking on, I said it for a while when I started my firm, it was food, family, and health. But then I moved to Miami after I had my second child. And I just met a bunch of lawyers, and this all goes back to me wanting to be a lawyer when I was a kid. I had a lawyer say, like, would you do my public relations? And I'm like, I wanted to be a lawyer. I like to think I'm a lawyer. So yes, I'll do your public relations. And it worked out great because I still, like I said, I want to be authentic to myself. And with every client I take, I want to be interested in what I'm doing, because when you're doing public relations, you're still crafting a story just like you were in journalism or TV news. So I really use it as the basis of what I do for my clients is craft a story for them that I know will get picked up in the media, or I think will have a good chance of getting picked up in the media.
And you talk a lot about how you're sort of solving those issues. So when brands come to you, what are some of the issues they need the most help with? I mean,
interesting thing with public relations too is a lot of people don't understand what it is. Sometimes I say even my parents are still like, well, I don't understand. People want something called like a return on investment. So they, ROI, they want to see results. And sometimes you're not gonna see like, you launch a new product, somebody will ask like, oh, how do I know how many people bought the product because of public relations? I'm like, you're never going to know that. You're not going to know. It's not like advertising where they're clicking through a link or a hyperlink, to go to your website and directly buy a product. So they don't know that. So it's harder to measure. So the way clients see results is, if I get them on TV or in articles, online, it's really to raise their profile. That's what I always tell them. I'm like, it's more about raising your profile, and also there's a legitimacy, I feel like, that comes with if you're on TV, you put it on your website. It just, there's something to that to make it look legitimate. And also, I think people like seeing somebody on video, especially.
Sure, and you're sort of speaking to that authenticity again, showing the brands how they are.
Yep.
So in 2012, you became the Public Relations and Communications Director for the Institute of Culinary Education. So what is this institute, and how did your background guide you into that role?
So this was one where I just applied. I was like, it was like a director job, and I just started my PR firm.
Not on Craigslist?
No. Yeah, I actually don't remember exactly how I found it, but I just applied on a whim, and the person doing the hiring was really impressed by the getting on TV. Like they wanted a lot of their chefs to be on TV, and so it was great. And because I had gone to culinary school, I feel like, I knew the inner workings of that kind of school and how the chefs were and the personalities and everything. So it was a lot of fun running that department. And it was funny, right after I got the job, I found out I was pregnant with my second child. So it wasn't as long-term of a job as I thought, because then I wanted to go back to like kind of being my own boss, because I really like the kind of running my own firm and being my own boss. But it was a great experience, and we had a partnership with the New York Jets at the time. And so I got to go to like the Jets Stadium, and have some fun with that. And it was fun. And they also, the funny story about that, and just to bring the reality TV thing back together, is the Jonas Brothers had a TV show about one of the Jonas Brothers, and he was getting married at the time.
Yes.
So,
okay.
yes.
Something about Jonas and Danielle, or not Jonas.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they came and shot an episode at the Institute of Culinary Education, and I was looking for a name for my my soon-to-be-born next baby, and one of the producers called, and when she said her name, I was looking for a name that started with T, and she said her name, and I was like, that's a great name. And I ended up naming my child that name. I remember, like, it was so funny. So like the reality thing came back. I say she was named after a reality producer. My husband said it's the same name as Batman's girlfriend, Talia. So anyway, bringing the reality show experience back together. But yeah.
All roads lead to reality TV is what I've learned. I think what we're all learning right now.
Yes.
So, which is interesting, because in 2016, you became the managing editor for Dan Rather's website News and Guts Media. So what led to the transition back into news media, and how did you balance that with some of your PR firm work? Yeah.
So I also started doing social media for people. So as part of my PR firm, one of the pillars of it is we also do social media. And a friend of mine who knew Dan Rather said he's looking for social media help right now. And for those that don't know, Dan Rather was the anchor of CBS News for a long time, kind of a legend in the news business.
Oh, we know.
So when she said, do you want to do Dan Rather's social media? I was like, of course I want to do Dan Rather's social media. So it started through social media and just really picked up. It was in 2016 when politics was getting very big. The race that year, as we all know, was huge between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I think that Dan Rather found a real voice to talk about politics that year especially, and kind of found a new generation of followers, which was nice. And it took off so quickly that from there, News and Guts was launched, which was a website. So it started as, kind of this very small social media client to something bigger that kept evolving into bigger and bigger, to where it did become, like a full-time job. But I still kept some clients. So I didn't look, at that time I wasn't pursuing other clients, but I still had, kind of the clients that had been with me for a while, and I would take smaller projects on the side. But I did learn again in my head a few years later that why I left news, because especially politics now, it's really changed the media industry, and it is all consuming. Once you get involved in it, it's something that it's kind of not a part-time thing.
Yeah, and I can say you're almost like a recovering news junkie.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
So we can't say that.
Sometimes it's like, put down your phone, stop reading that stuff. But so recovering, but yet I still get my fix.
Awesome. So nearing the end of this interview, and I love how we kind of heard about your transition from news media to public relations, but in that doing food and really finding your niche. So what advice would you give to students like me wanting to find their footing within the media industry?
I would say, work hard, but also take any opportunities you can. The experience is key. Nobody's going to look at your GPA after college. They're just not. They're going to look at your experience. What have you done? So I would say any kind of experience. I mean, Night Talks is great experience. Any kind of thing like that. When I was here, I worked at the local radio station. I worked at the TV station, and just anything I could get was great because I really wanted to have kind of, a good resume leaving college and a good reel. So I also, was the one that was volunteering to go out and do any story just so I could put it on my reel. Get good grades, fine, but the experience to me is key. And if you can go and get experience in other cities like New York City, fabulous. Take advantage of it all. I know the college offers a lot of opportunities to help you get to New York if you want to, or LA, or different places. And if even if you can't afford it, maybe there's fellowship or grant money or scholarships. Just try your hardest and start early. I didn't even know to start as a freshman. I would say start, like, if you can as a freshman, doing whatever you can do, working at these different places on campus. You've got the agency, you've got all these great opportunities here now on campus. And I think, you'd be a fool not to take advantage of them because they're right there at your fingertips. You can go to college here and leave with a full, great resume and step out the door and, get hired. My other advice, which I mentioned earlier, but use that Gator connection. Like, use those connections. I mean, I'm here with this, the MPMT Council. We come on campus once a semester, but if you go on the website for MPMT, journalism, PR, or advertising, all the council members are listed. Yes. And you can contact any of them. We do this because we want to help people, so use those resources. I even, like, the professors here, I talk to them sometimes and they'll say, like, I have office hours and students, often don't come and ask anything. Go ask your professors. Like, they can help you. I mean, that's just don't be shy asking for help finding job, advice, because by the time you're a senior, it might be a little late. So start early and just try to get as much experience. And because of experience, you make connections. That's how I made all those connections in New York was, I kind of laugh. You kind of read where I've worked at the beginning. I worked at a lot of places, but because of that, I met so many different people, which was really ended up being really valuable in my career. So the more places you work, the more people you meet, the more networking you do, it all comes together.
Thank you so much for your insight, Cindi, and thank you to our viewers joining us. Until next time, good night.